Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited today to have my dear friend, Corey Swann. Corey, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hey man, it's my pleasure. Tony, I love what you do and glad to be here.
Now, Corey and I know each other through our dear friend Tim, who I'm also trying to get on the podcast, and another friend, Kevin, who hopefully will also be on the podcast. And we have this group of guys that we get together once a month, and we're there for peer support, and we're trying to help us be the entrepreneurs and executives that we're called to be. And so when I think about all the things that you do in your life, Corey, you're a husband, a dad, you fractional CMO, and you do so much in the marketing world. I'm curious, how would you describe the calling that God has placed on your life?
I would describe it as the path that I wasn't sure I was going to take, but it was laid before me. And so often I am reminded that we make our plans, and I've heard this. I don't know how true it is, but we make plan. Man makes plan, and God's laughs. So and I feel that I truly do think that it was a journey I wasn't sure about. I was kind of reactive in life when I was in my young mid-20s, and it took me through a corporate ladder. It took me to an agency. It took me to a place where I got to share my faith and work in the workplace. Opened me up to a new place there, and that's really just helped me, be a little more bold in my faith, and also in the work that I do. And so that path wasn't something I really was sure I was called. I really wasn't called into entrepreneurship, starting my own business, and it just ended up being the way that God's calling ended up being, something I had no vision for myself for. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I would say, that when I hear Jesus take the wheel, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, Jesus has the wheel, and I just
Yeah,
always thought I was the one steering it, and it truly is not the case.
I love it. I'm always curious when I listen to someone who I think has an intimate relationship with the Lord, and who also makes bold moves like I've seen you do. As a matter of fact, as we record this, it's just about a year anniversary from when you went full time in your own entrepreneurship. But I'm curious, how do you discern God's voice in your life?
Coming up on 2 years.
Oh,
You're
two
good.
years.
Yeah.
LinkedIn failed me.
My LinkedIn field. Oh,
Yeah.
that's on me. That's on me, not on you. So I'll have to check that out. And you have to ask your question again.
How do you discern God's voice in your life?
Mm, mm. It is. Uh, it's something that it has to be sought out for me. That I have to make sure that I'm being um, wise and listening, and being really intentional with my time with the Lord every day, reading, um, taking in I do the YouVersion Bible app devotional,
Hmm.
and it's really, there's a really intentional prayer time there that helps me recenter and to focus on what I think is important, through his voice that that's telling me what do I need to be focusing on. And often those times that I start to step away and kind of take it back into my own control is when I realize that I'm focused on the wrong things. And then I go for a walk outside to clear my head again, um and I pray, and I kind of like say, like, hey, like, why am I feeling like the pain right now? And I know the answer, but I still like to listen and feel the tug of, hey, what in what I do, strategic marketing, as a fractional CMO, it tells me the not focus on the small things that are distractions and the shiny objects, so to speak, and kind of focus back on, the bigger rocks, the bigger projects that the clients, really focus on, and kind of, again, then takes me back more to the biblical side of what matters, and that's the personal relationship, the communication, and then obviously, doing my best to give the glory to God through all the things that I do.
One of the things that I'm fascinated about hearing your thoughts on is being outdoors as a spiritual discipline.
So I feel like you're leading me into the Eremos, as we both have talked recently about Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. And I've always been an outside kid. I was forced to be an outside kid when I wanted to play video games when I was a young kid. And it just really, it's so funny because I didn't really come to the Lord until I was an adult, and that time, but in between, it just was. I didn't have a relationship, but he sure had a tug on me, and he was pulling on my heart because there I am outside all the time. One of the things I really liked to do when I lived in North Carolina was surf. And I'm always near the water. Pretty bold about some of the fun things that I'll do. I'll do some little more adventurous things. I'm not, crazy, like Red Bull athlete by any means, but I like to do some things off the beaten path, like scuba dive and all that stuff. And they're the most peaceful and amazing times are times that I've been in solitude in the outdoors. And I don't think that's an accident by any means. I think it's when I've been the closest to God, even when I didn't really have that relationship. And then as I did develop that relationship, there's no denying that being out in his presence and in the wilderness is away from the distractions, away from the phone, away from the computer, away from the TV, away from all of the civilization, which I struggle with civilization as a whole and society, I guess, maybe more modern day Western society. So it's a place for me to get away from that, take a breath, say, Lord, what am I, what am I here for? The questions I used to ask myself without that were a lot more difficult. And now obviously I know, the main calling is to grow the kingdom and try and just be as close to Jesus as I can be.
I think that there are a lot of leaders listening who resonate with what you're talking about. It almost sounds monastic in nature, right? Like there's kind of that stoicism part to who you are, which is what some of the things I love about you. And yet, the flip side to that is you literally have a job helping people use their voices so that their message can get out and their clients can purchase whatever it is they're selling, or you know what I mean? Like you're a marketing guy. You convince people to buy stuff. Not really, but I'm oversimplifying,
Oh,
sure. But
no, that it's funny. The oversimplification is something I struggled with maybe half a decade ago. I remember talking to the owner of the company I was working at the time, saying that I didn't really know if marketing was where, like, if it mattered. It's like, like, what am I doing? Helping like the commerce side of this world, the money side of this world, like moving people money from a business to another business, and like, what is that doing for the kingdom of God? And thankfully, I came across another person in a strategic partnership who his business is actually named after 1 Peter 4:10. And I realized that, that we're all have our special skills that, our unique abilities that allow us to serve the kingdom through marketing, so to speak, or through whatever it may be that, we have some overlapping clients that are in the different trades, and maybe there's people out there who are janitors or who are teachers, and they're like, like maybe teacher seems like it's a little bit more like you can have a direct impact, but like a janitor, or somebody who's doing
sure,
HVAC or whatever it may be, may
peripheral.
struggle with that, auto mechanic, whatever it may be, and they may
Yeah.
struggle with the mundane, of the day to day. But really, it's when you do excellent work and you do it for the glory of God, those opportunities are going to show up each and every day. Again, practicing the way. John Mark Comer, he just talks about, it doesn't matter what you do if you're a Christian at your heart, you do everything with excellence, and you strive to be excellent, then the rest kind of falls into place.
Yeah, talk to me about your ability to share your faith, and also, your website is what I would call like sneaky Jesus. It's not overtly Christian in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing to indicate that you are a man of faith in your outward marketing, pun intended. Yet, yet it's so core to who I know your identity to be. What's that balance like for you? As someone who serves all clients, you don't discriminate, and yet, you're sneaky Jesus.
Well, I would love to say that I'm not sneaky Jesus. I hope I can remove. You're gonna entice me to remove some of that veil, I guess, because like it's funny because behind me, right here is this is the world history chart, according to the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't mind having this up behind me. And it's so funny. I get so many people who will tap my shoulder and they say, "Hey, what is that behind you?" And I'll say it's the they think it's an amphitheater or seating chart, and then I'll kind of explain what it is, and then boom, then we're having a different conversation. And it's sometimes it's a short lead in, but it's always an open door, right? And so for me, when I do hand out a one pager about me, it's in there. First and foremost, I'm a believer of Jesus or follower of Jesus. For one of the first sentences you'll see, and I like to think that I lived in a time where I mentioned earlier, I was in corporate and I was still navigating my relationship, but man, I would probably have never used that workplace as a place to do so. Not to say that I regret that, but I would say that, it's a learned process. And, I think that in an agency that I worked at after that, again, I was just developing more and more of my relationship throughout, and um, a place I did not feel comfortable sharing
Mm.
any personal beliefs. And that's, I think that was like, how do I get past this? How do I get past something that I know is having an effect on me negatively in the workplace? And then, I found my previous firm that was an open about their faith. They were fueled by coffee, bourbon, and Jesus, which is quite the mix. And but at the same time, it was refreshing to be on that side of it. And now I have a little bit of a mix of both, where like I do like to lead with the what I do. I do think it's important for people to understand what you do, and then boom, secondary, if our values align, you know, Jesus for me. Um, and any of it's not so much Jesus, but you want to have a great workplace and a good culture.
Yeah.
I think I don't think there's a lot of argument out there that the teachings of the Bible are positive in nature.
Well, I actually really appreciate the sneaky Jesus kind of mindset because I think it's um, that sometimes the sledgehammer approach is just not what people need to hear, right? I think Paul says it. Well, you have to be all things to all people so that you can share the gospel. I think that's important. Um,
I
two
do I
years.
do say like uh you can't just disciple to other Christians, right? I mean,
Right.
you have
That's
to be,
right.
hitting those people who haven't found the Lord yet.
2 years ago, you make the decision to start this new venture, and you've got young kids.
Mhm.
You've got a wife. You've got a whole host of responsibilities. I know that there's somebody listening right now who's praying through a big giant step in their own life. I'm wondering if you can share how you and your wife navigated that tumultuous decision to leave corporate security for for the freedom, but also the fear that comes with entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, it was a lot of prayer. It was, I think it was truly a 6-month lead time,
Mm,
from, a little bit of a momentous, happening, at the place I was at, and, I wanted to stay. I wanted to, like you said, it was comfortable. It was a place where I, um, had that steady paycheck, and the benefits of being able to show up and have it all laid out in front of me. And there was just a little bit of a struggle for me to find that why am I still having something tugging on my heart? And so it was a lot of prayer and a lot of discussion with my wife, and it just turned into I think this is the move. I've never I had stepped out as a subcontractor trying to hustle and grind, in the midst of the corporate job and the agency job, and it was okay, but it was not. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't
mm,
where I needed to be. I learned a lot, after that, and now I have the confidence, and the at least the will to try and make it work. And in my mind, I was thinking if I make as much money as I did as an employee, but working for myself, and heck, maybe I'll get some time back.
mm,
With having that freedom that you mentioned, then this is a success, and I just have to manage that, and manage, who knows, a few clients, and I'm good to go. And it's funny how Lord has taken that and really blessed it and given me the guidance and the forward momentum to keep this moving in the right direction.
What would you say to someone who's thinking about making their leap in their own lives, right? Like how, how would you know if it's the right time? What wisdom would you share with them?
I would say the couple of things that I really wanted to get laid out in front of me before I did was the business plan, which I think is important, is to actually have something written down. How are you going to make money? What's, what are you going to offer in your services or products? Um, Having the capital, which can be low. I want to say all in was 250, maybe $300 to get me where I needed to be to kind of start where I was at. And that's
Hmm.
granted, I was, that's at zero. Did line up a client, as I was offboarding. So I was, was intentional with that as well. So I wasn't jumping into nothing. If there's a name I can drop here, it would be Justin Welsh. He's a solopreneur. He actually his newsletter is called the Solopreneur Saturday Solopreneur. And he really dives into what took him from zero to he's a 7 knocking on the door of 8-figure solopreneur.
Wow.
Yeah, he's doing really well. And his path is, I think, unique. I don't think a lot of people are, crushing it with 200,000, newsletter subscribers but he's a creator, he truly is. And he started from just writing, just intentional copywriting and sharing his, his growth path. And then he built a course on it. And now he's rolling. So for me, it was a lot of listening to others who have made the leap before. I do have mentors. I think it's super important to talk this out with your mentors. I talked about this for months with mentors before I made that jump. So there was a lot to it. I almost did a different venture. It would have been a lot more capital up front. And I still think comfortably, I think I would have, really stuck that out, just
Yeah.
because of what I've learned now. Well, maybe I wouldn't have stuck it out then, but I would definitely stick it out now. So yeah. And there are thin times you have to work through, right? You have to figure out how to, again, this is where you get the blessing from the Lord and the blessing from your spouse, to make sure to communicate that, because it's not going to be, especially early on, sunshines and rainbows through the beginning.
As you think about the work that you do now versus the corporate world, it's we're painting this picture that while it's hard, it's just been amazing. What's the hardest part about being the solo entrepreneur or the solopreneur for you? How do you wear that weight?
Yeah. Just did this exercise. It is the nurture, the TLC, if you will, of the clients that you carry, and also keeping the healthy biz dev flywheel moving. And then, the various admin that also comes with that, your taxes, your payroll, to stay on top of all of that. And maybe the answer is realizing, even as a solopreneur, you probably shouldn't do it alone. Is
Yeah.
leveraging some of your resources, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help. Again, whether it's through guidance on, hey, like, this is how it works for me, and or here's a resource to get you through that tough point, um, and I would say surrounding yourself with people in various similar formats, as we have in our small group, because it just illuminates a lot of those pain points, and you learn. We're not the first people to do it, right?
Right, that's right, and we won't be the last, and there will be people who do it better than us. Like
That's right.
those are things I remind myself all the time. Like you're not as good as you think you are. You're not as bad as you think you are.
That's right. That's right.
Just shut up and do the work.
That's it.
I
That's
mean,
it.
it's just some truth to that, right? Like, um, so I'd be remiss if I had you here and I didn't talk a little bit about this idea about marketing and strategy. And one of the quotes that you have on your website is a vision without a strategy remains an illusion. And I want you to talk to all the leaders out there about developing their voice. What are some of like the first things that every leader should be doing as they think about this process?
Well, I would say the first thing that comes to mind, as I've learned through leaders of businesses, with people, is the people. and making sure that you have alignment. I would say, in Traction, a book that we are familiar with, there's a lot of talk about the right people in the right seats, and the people that you do have getting it, wanting it, and having the capacity for their role. And that's important. You have to make sure that the people that you have align with the vision that you have, and then your strategy that will come out of that, whether it's other people on your leadership team that are helping develop that strategy, or if it's just people who are going to be executing upon the strategy, the salespeople, the operations folks. That's where you have to make sure that you're lined up, because if you can be a visionary all day long, if you're not cultivating the culture inside your four walls, so to speak. If you're virtual, that's fine. That you have to make sure that the people are happy. Otherwise, the thing that'll kill you the most out there in the business world is churn and burn of people. It'll come back to bite you.
I'm curious, and we've never talked about this. Do you and your wife have something like this for your own home too? Because this feels super applicable. Like you could lay this exactly what you said. I was thinking, oh, you know what? This is true for my family too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the kids aren't old enough yet for us to really incorporate them, but we definitely have a vision for what our life looks like. It's funny, I keep kind of jumping back into some EOS stuff here, but there's a VTO, and I do have a family VTO. We have a family VTO,
Yeah,
which
what's a VTO?
yeah,
Just for the people
vision
that don't know.
traction organizer. So you have your vision, your traction is how you execute on the vision that you have, and then it's just an organized one page worksheet, right? So it has all the things you want to lay out, whether it's your finances or your goals of what your life looks like. It's more or less a vision board on paper, on a document, versus something creative.
If somebody was unfamiliar with EOS or a VTO and they wanted to start casting a vision for their family, where would you tell them to start?
In prayer. Yeah. That'd be the first place I'd go, is what speak it into manifest your reality of what you want it to be. Speak it to the Lord, and see what he has to offer you through that, and he will bless, or he will navigate, and refocus you on what you should be doing to make that vision come to light for you. And so for me, I really do like EOS, is the book I mentioned earlier, Traction. It has the VTO pretty well laid out in layman's terms. So you can look it up on their website too. Um, and you can create that, and you can start from where you're at today and say, hey, what does it look like from 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And put it down on paper, and strive to be what that is.
When you're working with leaders about their branding and about their voice, and let's say that you're working with a faith-based leader, I know that there are a lot of faith-based leaders listening. How do you encourage them to navigate the tension of the culture of the world and their own values?
Boldly, I would say don't. I would say be true to, and I do think being authentic is the most important thing you can do. Sometimes you have to make sure that you go into that knowing that not everybody's going to align with that in the world. I'm not talking about your internal culture now. I'm talking about the external people that you may be putting your voice out to, and be willing to take the bad that comes with that, I guess, the negative, if you will. And that's not that your message is negative, but the people who may be receiving it may take it in a negative way, and it may comment on your social posts, or whatever it may be, your podcasts. And they might they might make you feel bad, but you have to realize, if you're going to put your word out there, and be bold, then you have to be willing to stand behind it. And that's why it's important to be authentic, because then you can be unapologetic to a degree. There's not to say you won't make mistakes and should apologize when you make mistakes, but when you are unapologetically authentic, then it gives you the opportunity to make those raving fans stay with you, because you're not going to change. I like the analogy of being the thermostat, not the thermometer. When you come into a room, you don't change, but no matter what the room's temperature is, you can still set your own temperature to be the same person in and out of every room. And that consistency, huge. And be a good listener. That's the last one.
One of the things on your website that I was curious about is omni-channel marketing solutions. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So today we have permeated from the traditional world, which was, really just billboards and newspapers at one time, radio, and then and you brought TV into it, and then .com happened, the World Wide Web, and so now you've got all the different various channels that have come off the World Wide Web, social media, email, and you name it. You got other digital forms of digital ads. You have video. And there's so many that you could really get into. There's obviously so many different social media channels but living in and of itself. So omni-channel is combining multiple channels. It is including an omni-channel. Just means multi-channel and various channels. So you have, I think, omnivore, carnivore, herbivore, omnivore. Yeah. You have your traditional, if you will, laid out. You have your digital, and you have maybe it's a various other a handful of channels that you would go through. So this, for example, you're just let's say you're like Surf Pro. Surf Pro, people are familiar with the brand. It's pretty large. They have their trucks are all decked out and wrapped. You see a Surf Pro truck on the road. That's part of your channel. That's your more traditional style, I guess. You get direct mail to your home from Surf Pro. They painted somebody in your house. They painted someone near your home. You get direct mail saying, "Hey, we painted somebody's house in your neighborhood. You should work with us. Do you see that house? That we did that. You should do it too." And then you could even look at what they might hit you with a social media ad. Same thing. They might hit you with a radio ad. Same thing. So that's your omni-channel coming at you from different places to get those. It's not a rule of 7 anymore. The rule of thumb, 7, 5, 10 years ago was the rule of 7. 7 impressions. Chances are you're going to get, a warm lead, possibly a sale out of that, to really actually get them to convert on your website. And now it's more like a rule of 30. So you're fighting for a lot of real estate anymore. There's people who can really hammer their digital presence on you a little bit easier than the traditional that you're used to. So combining that with your resources is kind of the idea of the omni-channel approach.
Let's say that there's somebody listening right now who's maybe got a business and they don't have any marketing plan at all. Like they don't know where to start. They're not even sure they can afford to call you. What's the first thing that every company should do to help get their marketing right?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say understand their brand, and that's normally the first thing that I do in an engagement with whether it's somebody in that exact scenario doesn't have the marketing built up yet. You have to understand who you are. You have to understand who you're talking to, when you're going to talk to them, and then what resources that you have to give to those folks. And I go through 6 exercises. It's build your persona. It's build out your mission, your vision, your values. It's build out your persona. I should kind of explain on that as your target customer. So that could be multiple people. Might be you would know if working in your business, like who you serve, and give them a name, give them an age range, give them whatever other demographic features that matter. The brand language that you would use. How, are you sympathetic? Are you compassionate? Are you, if you're a lawyer, are you probably a little more 201? Are you a little more 301? Talking a little bit higher level. And those are the things that people need to understand resonates with the people who are going to eventually make a purchase with them. If you're going to, let's go back to the lawyer. If you're going to be a lawyer and you're, on an ad talking silly, like if you're not using proper grammar, you're not using, proper sentences, a lot of people aren't probably going to give you a lot of trust. And so to build that trust, you have to understand your brand. And you can start with one channel. You don't have to do an omni-channel from ground zero. Start with where your target market's at. You know where they're at. If you have started a business, chances are you started your business because of where you're at. And that would be the first piece. And so then you can know who you're marketing to, how you're marketing to them, and when you're marketing to them. It's pretty much the method to getting in front of those people when it matters.
One of the things I know about my podcast family is that they love to pray. And I want you to think about the year ahead and what's some things that we can come alongside you in prayer for as it pertains to you and the work you're doing and what the Lord's called you to, and how can we pray for Corey and his family and strategic marketing execution.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's for offering it up. And one of the things that I do love about being in this solopreneur entrepreneurial world is I do get to give these services the best of my ability to some nonprofits. And so if I were to stay on the business side, the prayer there is to continue to give encouragement and have focus on the, maybe not the people who have the bandwidth or maybe even the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal to pay for the services, and for me to still give them the best of my ability, um, services that will help bring those nonprofits up, and there's a couple that are really faith-based. Actually, on this podcast, I'll share them. One is Eagle's Nest Wilderness Ranch. It's my wife's aunt's. It's an equestrian family, more or less alternative to the foster care system. And so they're out in Colorado. It's a beautiful mission. They're doing a lot of great things, raising a lot of capital right now, and so really love what they're doing. Another one is here locally, in our area is in Xenia, is Athletes in Action, and a guy who works there I'm really close friends with named Isaac, and he is the director of soccer. Used to be, I don't know if he still is, and he's got an amazing organization that he started called Jesus Loves You Ball. So it's got Jesus Loves You written in 71 different languages on the ball itself. Really cool. And so obviously that can start a lot of really cool conversations. A lot of people play soccer, multicultural. They may, especially in Europe where he once played, you may not speak the same language as somebody else. You got a ball, there's this Jesus Loves You. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool, and so you can start. It's a really, really nifty idea. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. Praying to serve those really well, and actually also, there's another out there called H2O Life, which is about bringing kids to the water, because water is proven to elevate the mental health of people. So being in, on, or near water, scientifically proven to elevate that mental health of folks, and so it's another amazing mission, and really love what they're doing too, and being a part of that. So those are some nonprofits that I love to really pour into, and obviously want to continue to do so. And then on the other side of just like the family and the work balance, that's you've already mentioned it, 2 young kids, a wife that love dearly, and just continue to focus on reminding me why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is to be available to do those amazing family centered things, and be a great father, and raising up my children as the Lord would have see fit, and his will be done. And so far I think it's the right decision I've made. It's been really wonderful to see some of the things that he's put in front of me because of this, and so just pray around that.
I love it. I love it. I have one more question to ask you, but before I do, I know that people are going to want to connect with you all over the interwebs. Where is the best place to learn all things Corey?
I'm probably most easily connected on LinkedIn, Corey J. Swann. If you search my name, I'll pop up. It's linkedin.com / Corey J. Swann. So there's that. And then, my website is a great place too, stxmkt.com. And and then also you can just reach out directly to Tony, and we know each other personally, so he's happy to send me anybody you talk to.
I would love to. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, last question I love to ask people. It's an advice question. I ask you to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, except I get to name the season of life that you're in. I want to take you back to your very first day in corporate marketing, your very first job. You just finished your first day. You're overwhelmed with the amount of things that you've just experienced, and you're like, oh, my Lanta, what did I just get myself into? And I want you to sit down with that younger version of yourself, sit knee to knee with them, look them in the eyes, and give them one piece of advice. about the journey he's going to go on?
Well,
What are you gonna tell him?
the one that just hit me across the face was follow Jesus, dude. I mean, like just right there. Like at that time of my life, it was, it was very volatile, and that relationship was definitely not optimal. But it was definitely the seed had been planted.
Mm,
Um, that's one, and maybe two is to I think to focus on the work ethic. One of the things that I would say entrepreneurship forces you to is to make sure that, I mean, if you're not, you said, shut up and do the work. Um, building that work ethic early on in the career, really, really valuable. I came from, I was, we didn't talk about this, but prior to getting into marketing, I was a school teacher. So I worked 9 months, you know, for 2 years and surfed the other 3 months of the year. So, like working 12 months year round is a little bit destined for burnout. And, and so, but building that work ethic was really important, and would have set the stage early, and still learned so many great things, great training, and things that really set me to be where I'm at today. But yeah, those are the two.
do you ever miss teaching?
Oh, more than you know. I miss a lot of what teaching was. I miss the kids big time. That was I was teaching sixth grade, and kids are, especially at that age, or especially being a male teacher, which it was
Yeah.
a pretty big deal. Um, was It was a really amazing chance to have an impact on people who, especially where I was at, was a little bit of low income, a little bit of military, um, and those relationships were just wonderful. They were the relationships built were incredible, and I've still got some of the students in my heart that I just hope that they're thriving in life, and hope that I may have touched them in a way that would have given them the tools to succeed in life.
Yeah. I love it. And I appreciate your heart, man. I appreciate your heart. There's 1,000 more things we could have talked about today, but I'm very thankful for you taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. I You know how much I treasure our friendship, and I'm excited to see what God does next.
Yeah, man. Well, when you're ready for round two, you let me know, because being on here is just I think it's a blessing, and all the great things you're sharing. And yeah, Tony, I love you, man.